Welcome to Shauns Take, brought to you by the Keystone Sports Network. Here are your hosts, Shaun and Jim.
Hello and welcome to Shauns Take, brought to you by the Keystone Sports Network. I am Jim Galante. He is Sean Gold. Sean, how we doing this week?
Doing good. We haven't talked in a little bit. I'm excited to get, back on the air with you and, give the people what they need, some sports talk.
Obviously, we've got to dive into it. It's another good sports week. We've got the NBA Finals coming up. We've got you and I are big college football guys. We got a lot of information coming out there, a lot of the playoff format talk, but more importantly to you and I, they're coming out with some of the point spreads for the upcoming season. So we're going to talk about that. We'll get into that pretty deeply. But first, Sean, let's talk about this NBA Finals that's coming up. Did you have it on your bingo card before the season started? Oklahoma City and Indiana?
I definitely didn't have the Pacers there. I thought OKC was going to be in contention. They were one of the wagons in the West, and I'm not going to lie, I thought they might still be a year away. I thought, a team like the Denver Nuggets with that championship experience might be able to, dethrone them in a 7-game series. And Oklahoma City has had a historically dominant playoff run here. So they have shown, despite I think being maybe the youngest team they reached the NBA Finals in however many years, they showed that their experience is not a hindrance on this run right here. Meanwhile, Indiana got off to a rocky start this season, and we knew they were a good team. They got to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, but I think more people thought that was a one and done type of situation than getting back there and advancing to a finals this year. So it's been actually very fun to watch this Pacers team because in every series, it seems like they're slept on and then they go and punch you right in the mouth. I mean, they beat teams that they on paper should not have beaten. And now, unfortunately for Indiana, I do think that their run's going to come to an end here. Oklahoma City is just a different type of team. I don't know if if we've seen a team as dominant in the postseason since maybe the Kevin Durant Warriors when that was going on. OKC just destroyed everybody, and even Denver took them to 7 games. But in the Oklahoma City wins, those games were not close. I think they've got more 30-point playoff victories than anybody's had in a postseason history or something like that. This team is locked and loaded, and I'm hoping for a very good competitive series. But Jim, to be honest, I don't know how you beat Oklahoma City. And I like this Indiana team. They're scrappy. They've got good depth, but OKC just wears you out.
And I'm not sure a lot of people are aware of just how good this Oklahoma City team was during the regular season. 68 wins. That's a lot of wins. They ran away with the Western Conference. Nobody was even within shouting distance of them, Sean. And I think what's, again, some of these things, I'm saying they're surprising to other people because they were surprising to me when I looked into it. Just how good OKC is defensively, especially for a young team. You don't expect that. The other thing is, and I knew Oklahoma City had a boatload of draft picks coming up in the future. But before the show, I wanted to just say more than a boatload. I wanted to look into it a little bit. Sean, it's incredible. Here's a team that, at least by record standards, were the best team in the NBA during the regular season. Mostly cruise through the playoffs to get to the finals. They're a heavy favorite here in the finals. But listen to this going forward. The next 3 years, each year, they have two number one draft picks. And it goes even further into the future. Get this, from the years 2028 through 2030. Okay. That may seem like way out there. It's really not that far. A lot of these players could still be around for it. They have 16 draft picks over those three drafts. Whoever the general manager is of Oklahoma City, they should just give him, the best GM of the year award. They should retire the award and name it after him.
It's been a dominant stretch of general manager. I believe it's Sam Presti is their general manager. Just a dominant stretch. He's kind of like the Howie Roseman of the NBA, if you will. Just these trades. I mean, you traded Paul George away for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's now a significantly better player than Paul George at this point. and a boatload. I think it was 4 or 5 first round picks, and all these guys are ending up hitting for them. And to go off of all those draft picks, one thing that I want to add, just to put a little cherry on top of all that, Oklahoma City's first round pick from 2024, a guy named Nikola Topic, did not play this season with an injury. I forget what the exact injury was, but he was considered one of the best prospects coming out of the draft. He slipped to them at number 12 because of an injury, and they still took him. And he's a guy who I believe should make the active roster next year, and he could end up being a contributor on this team. So it's funny, like saying they have these 2 first round picks in the next couple of years. I'm right now trying to figure out who do you kick off the roster to put in for these guys, because they can go 12 deep and have everybody and production doesn't drop. So they're in a great position to, yeah, I mean, mirror like a little bit of the Warriors dynasty, where just it seemed like every year they're showing up in the finals, or like LeBron's run in the Eastern Conference, where just every year, whether it was with the Heat or back with the Cavs, he found himself in the finals. Oklahoma City has that shot.
And with all those future assets, they're not going to keep all of those picks. You can make trades. And by the way, I think the award is Executive of the Year, not GM of the Year, to get it right. Just retire it and give it to this guy. So they put themselves together. And what's also fascinating, let's talk a little bit on the court. It's interesting to me because, first of all, Oklahoma City and Indiana, the names right off the bat do not thrill NBA fans in general. It's not the Celtics or the Knicks or the Lakers or the Warriors, but I hope people will at least tune in and learn the names of some of these young players, these young stars, the new generation, next generation. You mentioned Shea Gilgis Alexander for Oklahoma City. There's also Tyrese Halliburton for Indiana. Let me give you another little tidbit. And this especially comes after we just saw the NBA draft lottery. And everyone, you want to talk about the top of the draft, right? This is how you you make your teams better. A Cooper Flag comes out, and the thought is, hey, he could turn things around for the Mavericks. But here's interesting. Do you know where Gilgis Alexander and Halliburton, where they were drafted?
I'm trying to think back to Gilgis Alexander, because I know he's drafted by the Clippers, and I'm trying to think late first round or second round. It was not a. I don't think he was a top 5, top 10 pick though.
Yep. Gilgis Alexander was drafted 11th
Okay,
by Charlotte and then went to the
got it.
Clippers that same day. Um, Halliburton was picked 12th
Okay,
by Sacramento.
yep.
Okay. So the thing here is both were double digit draft picks, one 11th, one 12th. Plus, they went to other teams before they ended up ultimately on Oklahoma City and Indiana. You know what? That tells you it's not all about those first couple draft picks. You could build these teams differently in the NBA.
Definitely, and we'd have to go back and look at who else was in that draft class. But just think about it. If you
Oh,
were to,
just a real quick note. I'm not going to give you any names, but I went back to look because I was curious. It's stunning some of the awful names that were picked ahead of these two.
yeah, and that's the thing. You can they would be the number 1 or number 2 pick in every draft that they would go into now, depending on the years that they were in there. But it is crazy to get that type of value. And I mean, we've seen it. Nikola Jokic, probably, in my opinion, the best player in the NBA. I think he was a second-round pick. Giannis Antetokounmpo. I don't know if he was a first-round pick. I know he wasn't a top 5 pick because he was a developmental guy. But man, when you get these guys middle of the first round or late of the first round, you're seeing that win championships more than you are, a number 1 pick. Like, we can name a lot of number 1 picks who either haven't panned out or just haven't lived up to the expectation and led to wins. So it is fun. And like you said, I encourage everyone, still tune in. I mean, this Indiana Pacer team, they're here for a reason too. So I think everybody thinks OKC is going to steamroll them. And believe me, I would not be shocked if that does happen. But Indiana, we thought they were going to get steamrolled by a lot of other teams, and they turned it around and flipped the script. So, they're not just going to back down in this series.
Our colleague at Keystone Sports Network, Dustin Schutte, is from Indiana. So huge Pacers guy. I'm sorry, Dustin. I'm with Sean on this one. I think it's time for Oklahoma City. Uh, Sean, how about we shift gears here again to like, well, at least I know my favorite sport. I know you love college football also. And we've begun to get some of the point spreads in, especially for that first weekend of college football. Now, I'm one of those who's very critical of those teams who play just awful out of conference schedules. So you just get again, I'll use the expression a boatload of awful games that first weekend. And as a Penn State guy, I'm looking at you, Nittany Lions. I think they're like a 45-point favorite against Nevada in their opener. But Sean, there are a lot of very good games that first weekend, that Labor Day weekend.
There definitely are. And I mean, I think, you know, it'd be wrong to not talk about the main one that's coming on, Texas at Ohio State. I mean, what a treat for college football fans to get this matchup right off the bat. There's no better way to start a season than with a matchup like that. Two playoff teams. We got the Arch Manning, those highlights are going to be cooking leading up. The hype's going to be building up. And then we got an Ohio State team. Obviously, I mean, they were by far the best team in college football last year, but you now have some turnover. New quarterback. Will Howard's not there anymore. And Ohio State at home is opening up as a 3.5 point favorite right now. It'll be interesting to see if that number changes as we get closer. To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised, depending on how much hype Arch Manning can garner going into it. I wouldn't be surprised if this line creeps up to more of a pick'em style of game.
Mm.
Right now, I would say until Ohio State starts losing, it's very hard to say that they're not still the best team in college football. I know they've had roster turnaround, but I also think it's a program that's going to be ready for the new generation at quarterback here. So Arch Manning and Texas, they've got the hype. We know we've talked about the payroll on that team. It's going to be an expensive team with a lot of talent. My gut right now, though, until Ohio State falls, I'm going to struggle to say that, I wouldn't pick them in a game like this.
On our Keystone Kickoff show, obviously we talk mostly Penn State football, but I can't help myself have to talk about Ohio State. As you said last year, not sure they were far and away the best team in the regular season, but come playoff time, they certainly were. And they played up to that talent. And you mentioned Arch Manning, and I think this is going to be the fascinating storyline of this season. So many of the top teams have new quarterbacks at the helm. Arch Manning, for as much name value as he has, as much hype as he's getting, he sat behind what, a seventh round draft pick? Okay, he couldn't take the job from Quinn Ewers. I'm not saying Arch Manning's not going to be a good quarterback, but I'm just saying if he were all that, maybe we would have seen more of him last season. And for Ohio State, as you mentioned, Will Howard not there. Who's going to be their quarterback? They still have a quarterback fight going on. Although a lot of people think the transfer from Alabama from a year ago, Julian Sain, is going to be the guy. It will be fun to see. But that's not the only big game going on that first weekend. Here's one that I really like: LSU at Clemson. Clemson's a 2.5 point favorite, which I think is all about home field there. But here's what's interesting. After I told you most of the contenders are going to have new quarterbacks, guess what, Sean? In this one, Garrett Nussmeier is back for LSU and Cade Klubnik is back for Clemson. Great quarterback matchup.
This is a great quarterback matchup, and another game I'm very excited about this game because I think both of these teams have the potential to be one of those. I would say right now they're kind of tier 2 teams to elevate into that tier 1 conversation. Both had very good moments at times last year, but they were incomplete, and that's why we didn't see them in the national championship game in the semifinals. I wouldn't be surprised if one of these teams can make a run this year and really shock a lot of people. And what a chance in week 1 to showcase that you either deserve to be in that conversation or don't. So this is going to be an interesting game. I'm excited to see how these offenses look. Like you said, they've got returning quarterbacks. That leads to I think a lot of success in college football when you don't have to deal with, adjustments of a new signal caller coming in, getting a feel with everybody. So I think both of these teams are going to be very dangerous, and one of them is going to have the opportunity to set the tone right from week one. And to be honest, I don't know who it's going to be. I like that it's at Clemson, but I think LSU will be a very dangerous team.
And with the new playoffs, expanded playoffs, I think our hope was we would see more of these good out of conference games.
Yeah.
If anything, it's leaning the other way, away from that, just compile wins. So there's a couple of these games to have them, the Texas Ohio State, this LSU Clemson game. I really love to see that. And I hope it pays off for somebody. I hope it becomes a case where if LSU wins, you know what? That gets looked at as the tiebreaker and gets them into the playoffs. I'd like to see more teams encouraged to play this kind of game. There's a couple more games, and I'm going to throw two of them out at you. Take your pick which one you want to talk about, Shaun. But you also have Notre Dame at Miami. Notre Dame, finished in the national championship game a year ago. A lot of excitement for the Fighting Irish this year. They're just a point and a half favorite at Miami. And the other game, Shaun, is TCU at North Carolina, where it's not so much going to be the players on the field, it's the coach off the field, Bill Belichick. That's his first game for Carolina. They are a point and a half favorite hosting TCU.
Well, I definitely, after giving me both of those, of course, I want to talk about both. So let me give like really quick.
Go ahead, you get to do that. It's
The
hey, the
Miami.
show's named after you, Shaun. You could do whatever you want.
Well, thank you for the Miami game. It's an interesting one. Carson Beck, the transfer quarterback there. He was starting at Georgia, was considered a national championship caliber quarterback. Now he's at Miami making a boatload of NIL money. So he better show up and deliver in this game right away from week one, or you are going to have a lot of Miami Hurricane fans very unhappy about their program. And then for Notre Dame, it's a team, like you said, made the national championship game last year, has a lot of hype heading into this season once again. A team that I still thought last year was very overrated, but somehow they still made it all the way. So it just like Ohio State started the season bad, ended up being the best team in college football. So much turbulence can happen in college football. So that's going to be an interesting game to see who's really ready for the season, because I'm not convinced that either team is going to be a phenomenal team next year, but maybe they can do something in week one to change my mind on that. And then going back to TCU, North Carolina, this is kind of reminiscent of 2 years ago when Deion Sanders made his coaching debut at Colorado. Would I normally want to watch TCU, North Carolina? Not really. But am I going to be tuning in this year? Of course, because we got to see what Bill Belichick's done with this program. And it's not quite all the hype that Colorado had, because it's not Bill Belichick's son being the starting quarterback, and you don't have a Travis Hunter transferring in. But this is still going to be very interesting just to see what Bill Belichick looks like on a college football sideline, which is something that if you asked me 2 years ago if we would ever see that, I would have said absolutely not. So is his girlfriend going to be, right there with him too? Everyone's going to be wondering about that. So there's going to be a lot of different storylines in this game. And it's almost more of a media entertainment game than it is a football game.
Well, whatever TV network is covering the game, I assume it's ESPN. They're going to be looking for her.
Oh,
Okay,
yes.
they will be looking for her, so we might get that, and it will be fascinating because I've always thought North Carolina has the money now in an NIL world. They obviously invested a lot in Belichick. Are they investing enough in players and making the right decisions and bringing players in? Carolina, I think, has been a sleeping giant in the ACC.
Yeah.
Is Bill Belichick the right guy to bring that out? Candidly, Shaun, between you and I don't think so.
You
I
know,
don't think he's the guy.
I don't think he is either. And it's funny because I think it might be different if, I believe her name is Jordan, if girlfriend Jordan was not such a storyline right now. Then it might be more, oh, you have legendary Bill Belichick coming in, and that's what the focus would be on. And right now, the focus is not on who Bill Belichick is as a coach. He's still arguably the best NFL coach in the history of the NFL, but nobody's looking at him as an elite coach right now. We're looking at him as, who is this Bill Belichick that we've never seen before? So, I don't know what's going to happen here. If you asked me before the relationship started, I would have probably said, wow, I mean, I think he has a great shot at turning around this program and, taking them to the next level, but that's been anything but the talk has been what he's doing on the football field, and I think that's going to hurt this team this year.
Just a quick question for you on this Belichick team on their quarterback. Is it going to be Tom Brady?
Nope.
Okay, okay. I just checking, just checking. I'm not sure how many championships Bill has won without Tom Brady. So, I thought he might just try. Maybe he has one more year of eligibility we didn't know about, Sean. I just didn't know. Just asking. That's all. Clarifying.
A, a,
So,
a very acceptable question there, Jim.
all right. I'll tell you what, since we've got so many Penn State listeners, a couple games beyond the opening week. No, I'm not going to ask you about Penn State, Nevada, and could Penn State cover the 4,700 point spread or whatever it is, Sean. But there are two huge games on Penn State's schedule that they did come out with early spreads on, and I just want to get your take. Oregon is going to be playing at Penn State. First Big Ten game of the season for Penn State, and they get to a home game, which it's been years since their opener in the Big Ten has been at home. Huge. It's going to be the whiteout game. It's going to be at night with that 7:30 start with NBC, and Penn State is a 4.5 point favorite against the Ducks. Later in the season, I think it's the first weekend in November, Penn State goes to Columbus to play Ohio State. Most likely, Sean, that'll be Fox's big noon kickoff game. Uh, so probably at noon, and Ohio State in that one is a 4.5 point favorite, Sean. Your thoughts on those two games?
I like that Oregon line a lot. I think to start off, I think both are priced very fairly right now for where we're at. I wouldn't disagree with them either. And again, lines might change by a couple of points by the time we get there, just depending on how teams look, how everything's going at that point in the season. I think Penn State at home for the whiteout against Oregon is a game that they should win. And it's not Dylan Gabriel at quarterback anymore. They're having turnover on the roster too. I think Penn State's going to be put up for a lot of success in that game. And then, of course, you get to Ohio State. And I would like to think that, by that time in the season, Penn State is looking really good and might make that a more of a pick 'em game than it is, 3.5 or 4.5 point spread. But I'm still on the same thing that I said earlier with Ohio State against Texas. Until somebody beats Ohio State, and I believe it's been 7 straight meetings Ohio State has beaten Penn State now, until Penn State can get over that hump, it's very hard to say that they're going to go for the upset. Now, if there's been a year, though, with the roster turnaround that Ohio State's seeing and with Penn State bringing back a lot of very key, important offensive players, I think they're going to be better situated. I wish this game was at home this year for Penn State, but eventually they got to go on the road at Ohio State and get a win. And right now, I would say I'm more leaning on the Ohio State side of the spread, but if Penn State's offense is really looking as dominant as I think it has the potential to be this year, that could completely change that pick for me when we get there.
You know, I think you evaluated it very well. I think the hype at that Penn State hosting Oregon in the whiteout with the three terrible out of conference games, and you're going to hear from August right through till they play Oregon. Every weekly press conference, James Franklin's going to be asked about Oregon, and he's going to talk about Nevada, 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 and then Florida International, and then Villanova, be 1-0 this week. Here's the reality, Sean. Already today, that Penn State team is prepping for Oregon, okay? That's the reality, and I think they will be ready for that one. Until they prove themselves though against Ohio State, yeah, you have to go with Ohio State. Although I will throw another little number out there for you, Shaun. Just everyone knows Penn State struggles versus Ohio State, right?
Hmm.
We know that, and they're the 4.5 point underdog. It's been 9 years since Penn State beat Ohio State. Okay, that was the upset. In those 9 games, though, Shaun, in those 9 games, how have things been against the spread? Ohio State 8-1 in the games, but how is it against the spread? Do you know?
I mean, I know they've had some covers because I remember, on our radio shows we've picked them before and have won those picks, but I don't know the actual record against the spread.
Penn State is 6-3 against the spread versus Ohio State.
And that's a pretty profitable stretch right there if you're betting on them.
Just saying, Shaun. Just saying. So, all right. How about we make that the last note for our show, Shaun? It's been a lot of fun. We talk some NBA, we talk college football spreads. And you know what? I got a feeling we're going to still be talking some more college football next week.
I think there's definitely some topics to cover next week as well here, Jim.
All right. Thank you, Shaun. Thank you all for tuning in. Join us next week on Shauns Take.
Keystone Sports Network.